Okay, so we'll start, and people will keep joining in. The interpreter is spotlighted. No, I hope it's okay. Please let me know if it's otherwise. I'm audible, no, Shashank, Smita?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So thank you for joining. I'm Prateek. I'm the executive director of Astha. We are a community-based organization. We work in Delhi's urban slums. This webinar is jointly co-hosted by Politics and Disability Forum, which is led by Shashank, and Astha's National Disability Helpline. And we've done one webinar around a month ago where we just tried to understand how is the current census moving on, what are the type of questions, and majorly probably trying just to understand how does it all happen, how does data enumeration happen, um, and what is the technical process around it. We thought it's also worthwhile to understand the other side as well. How do so? For an example, Astha works with around 600 children with disabilities on ground. So, how does it really work out for us as an organization when actually data collection happens? So, how does sensor? Of course, impacts everyone, but how do people who are working on ground, persons with disabilities, organizations who are working with people with disabilities, disabled people's organizations, how does it impact them, and how can they contribute? And we think that the learning process also shapes a bit from the history of it. So, what was also happening in the sector uh, in 2011, which could also be very important for us. So we just thought that we'll also try and figure out what all did we do 15, 16 years ago. I think this is the longest gap between two census in independent India's history. So that's also one thing. Yeah, so we have Rama, and we have Nikita Sara, who've kindly agreed to be our speakers. Dr. Shruti Mahapatra is a bit unwell, so she could not join. But thank you, Smita, Rama, and Nikita. Um, We'll start with Shashank. So we were just I just wanted Shashank to give a brief overview of where we are right now. Just giving a brief overview why we are doing this, where we are right now, and what we could do collectively. So over to you, Shashank. I'll try and share the screen. Is it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Pratik, if you can share the screen.
I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. Yeah.
I'll anyways narrate for people who can't see it, but for people who can, it will be easy for them to follow.
ठीक है, ठीक है. Shashank Smith, visible, no?
I can see the screen, but it's a meeting window. If you can hear, it's just the meeting window. It's not the
Okay,
slide
okay.
window.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Is it visible now?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Hi everyone. So I'll just take a very short. I'll give a very short overview of how the census is going to be planned, and then we have speakers to speak on this. So, as Pratik mentioned, I'm audible, right? The voice is clear.
You're audible.
Yeah. Okay. So, as Pratik mentioned, the census that's going to happen in 20, the data is going to come up in 2027. It's the longest gap between any of the two census that India has ever undertaken, starting from the first back in 1872 when it did its first model census. And so it's going to be a data for 16 years now, unlike the previous census, wherein the data was for 10-year period. So expect a great sort of differentiation between the data of 2027 census and 2011 census. That's where we stand right now. Pratik, next slide, please. Yeah. So this is primarily the timeline as we see right now. So we knew that the census is going to be undertaken or some other notification is going to come up very soon, given the government's recent comment. And on 16th June, they notified the census process itself. So the census process officially starts as soon as the government, which is the Ministry of Home Affairs, publishes a notification of starting the process in the official gazette. That happened on 16 June 2025. With that, the process sort of started. The next thing that happens after census is that obviously preparation of questions, preparation of module, preparation of how the exercise will be done, the procedure layout, all that happens parallelly under the office of Registrar General and Census Commission, which is the nodal agency responsible for conducting the census in India. The first major activity that they do is actually a test exercise, which we call sort of pre-test of a census activity. So they uh, do a pilot program of entire process in few districts. So for instance, a pre-test was also conducted back in 2019, around same time period, which was like August, September 2019, because the census was supposed to happen in 2021. So the government or the Census Commission always does this pre-test 2 years or 1.5 year before the actual census happens. So they also did similar exercise in 2019, but because the COVID hit in 2020, the entire exercise sort of derailed because of that. But now they're also going to do a pre-test exercise of census. Now, one thing is very unique in this pre-test, which hasn't happened earlier, is that in previous censuses, in the pre-test they conducted both the exercise, that is the household survey, which I'll just mention what is there, and the population enumeration. So they did exercise a pilot program for both the stages in identified districts. So for instance, in 2019, they did an exercise in around 75 districts, around 36 states and union territories, covering, using 6,000 enumerators to cover a population of roughly 19 lakh. That was a pre-test that was done. So that's going to begin in October, November. That's what is reported from the Census Commission. The next exercise, which is the household enumeration, is going to begin officially from next year, from 1st April, wherein which is the first stage, and the data at the household level is collected. So data, what I mean by data at household level is that whether the household is having a pakka, is in an urban area or a rural area, whether the house is constructed using concrete or is constructed using mud, whether the house has a water connection, whether the house has a gas connection. So these sort of queries fall under household survey, which is the first stage. So all household pan India are covered under this exercise, which is going to start unofficially from December onwards this year and officially from 1st April, when the enumerators will go to every household pan India to cover that aspect. Just last slide, the last. Yeah, so um, so the next thing, which is sort of, so I made this slide in a very urgent way. So one point is missing in this is that the fourth thing that they do is actually population enumeration. which is what we understand as proper census. So population enumeration is uh, covering identity and questions related to every individual in the country. So census exercise is also different in that way that it covers or it asks questions to every person. I mean, theoretically, it has asked questions to every person. Uh, can people mute because there is a lot of disturbance? Yeah, thanks. Uh, so, um, so that this population enumeration is an exercise wherein every individual is counted, every individual is asked a question. Theoretically, I mean, not every individual is because children who are young, children below 18, their respective guardian answers questions. People languishing in the mental sort of or some house supportive house system, they are also not allowed to answer the question, but the manager who manages these facilities answers this question. But population enumeration will begin somewhere in 2027. Pratik, next slide. So there are two images which has been borrowed from the pre-test exercise that happened in 2019 because that's the only official document that we have right now as to what will be the questions. So if you see on the left side of the screen, the questions ask whether you are a person with disability, and the options that you have is yes and no. And if you say yes, then on the right side you have those 10 categories of disability. Now you will be asking why there are just 10 categories when the RPWD itself mentions 21. So as we understand right now is that these 10 categories have been sort of made comprehensive, wherein the individual disabilities, for instance, uh, thalassemia or sickle cell anemia or those individual disabilities that are mentioned in the schedule, they are clubbed in within a category. So they have used category as an umbrella rather than mentioning the specific disabilities. But this is from a pre-test exercise. Whether they have changed this process or whether they have changed these questions in the upcoming census or not is something that we don't know officially. Uh, and we have to wait when and as and when that response does come in. But as per our, the RTI that we filed back in like last year, we were informed by the Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities who sent their suggestions that they have sent us suggestions of having the list of all 21 disabilities within the census. But we don't have a confirmation. So this is just a sample of what we have from a pre-test exercise that was conducted in 2019. So as and when we get the response, we can only comment then. Next slide. Okay. Yeah, so there are three major components. I mean, as I mentioned, that this is going to be the first census which is going to be digital entirely. There is an app being developed by the Census Commission. There is going to be a digital interface wherein the enumerators will be able to come to your house and enter the data live. What it does is that it allows for faster integration of data as opposed to earlier exercise wherein the enumerator used pen and paper to check mark the entries, and then you had to feed in the entry in an automated software later on. So that was a very tedious task, and that delayed the process of releasing the data. But this time we expect the data integration and release to happen more promptly, and hence so there is a similar thing attached to the digital census is also there is going to be a provision of self enumeration, which is also one of a kind and for the first time that is happening in India, wherein an app will be developed wherein people can directly log into that app and fill their entries for the respective questions in the census. So how that is going to be operationalized is also something that we have to wait for. We don't have much clarity, but that's going to be there. Now you see the house listing and the household, as I mentioned, these are more broad questions at the household level. And then the population enumeration is going to happen. So population enumeration happens simultaneously in India. And the date that is fixed for that is um, the from the last 2 weeks of February 2027, because the census data has to be released on a very constant, on a very specific time and date, because every second the population of India changes. There is a birth, there is death, and there is migration, etc. So, but census data cannot be dynamic. It has to be very constant data. So one date is opted by the government, and the census data is released as on that day. And the date that is opted is the 1st March 2027. So the data that is going to come out of census exercise is going to be data of India as on 12 a.m. 1st March 2027. And hence the population enumeration is conducted very close to that date. So the last 2 weeks of February is something which is kept for population enumeration when pan India, almost 29 lakh enumerators are going to go to every household to collect that data, and then the data is going to be logged on 1st March. But that doesn't mean the data, census data itself is going to come on 1st March. That's just a date that has been decided. It does take time for them to release the data. What we have seen is that in the previous censuses, when it was in a pen and paper format, it took almost 4 to 5 months to release even the preliminary data. So preliminary data that we do get is in a very scattered format, and it takes next almost 1.5 year and 2 year almost to release the final set of data. But we expect this timeline to be short this time because it's going to be done digital. So we expect that entire process to be more fastened. But still, the entire data is only going to come somewhere around maybe 2028 or early 20 or late 2027. That's our understanding of the final data set. Next slide. So yeah, this is the last part, that what we have seen in the census. That census started in 1872 when the Britishers were there, and the Britishers conducted census in UK, and that is in their home country, and they adopted a similar model to be replicated in India, and that's the model that we're still continuing with. Unfortunately, there is very little change that we have incorporated when it comes to the census exercise itself. And the Britishers did conducted or collected data on disability. They did so starting from 1881 to 1931. Every 10 years, they did that. They did that for four disabilities. That was leprosy, that was blindness, that was disability in movement, and deafness. So those were the four categories that they collected. But in 1931, they decided that they will stop collecting data on disability, and the reasons were that the data that was coming up wasn't making any sense. I mean, they were not able to make sense of why the data is coming, and there was also belief that it was an undercount. And then India, after India's independence, the Indian government also decided not to do that, not to collect disability data in the census. But in 1981, they decided to collect disability, but they only did so for three categories. That was disability in seeing, disability in movement, and disability in speech. So those were three categories. And then again, in their report, they said that this is also an undercount, and hence we will stop the count or collecting disability data in the census. And it didn't happen in 1991. In 2001, they were supposed to not collect disability data, but after the pushback from the civil society and the OPDs, at the last moment, five categories of disability were included in 2001 census, and that was sort of first time gave a more comprehensive disability data in independent India. So 2001 census in reality is the first actual census that conducted disability or released disability data in a proper way. And then, as we all know, 2011 did, it collected data on eight kind of disability, and it revealed a data of 2.2% as total population. So that's where we are right now. The next disability is expected, the census is expected to collect all 21 categories. So how that happens and in what form the questions are being formulated is something that we are awaiting. So that's it from my side.
Thanks. Thank you, Shashank. Rama, you're here, no?
Yes. Hi,
Oh,
Pratik. Hi,
hi.
everyone.
Hi. So yeah, I mean, I just thought it would be a sensible start if Shashank gives an overview, of what the history has been and what we could do. I mean, since you were closely involved during the last census and should be the before, I mean, the 2001 as well. We were hoping if you could just walk us through the history of it. I mean, the history where Shashank actually says the real work started happening from 2001. So what happened in both the censuses, and how can we learn from the history? I think that's something we were wanting to know and learn from you. We were around 12 minutes or so. So I mean, if you could just figure out that time. Otherwise, I'll just ping you in between. But yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah,
useful to kind
please.
of tell me.
Sorry.
Yeah, if tell me that, if when it's like
Sure,
two
sure, sure.
minutes, just let me know.
Sure, please. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that was a very succinct presentation by Shashank. I mean, it kind of gives you. So yes, I remember the time it was 1999. Um, I was working with NCPEDP. Mr. Javed Abidi, who's the executive director of NCPEDP, had told us there was a lot of hype because 1999 was like, millennium is going to come, the 2000. So a lot of hopes, even for the disability sector, that things are going to change in the 2000s. So we also had a campaign, that Disability Millennium campaign, with a very positive approach towards the millennium. 1999 was when we wrote to the commission asking whether disability is going to be included in the census. A very simple question. And interestingly, we received a reply as well, which clearly said we are pleased to inform that disability is not going to be included in the census. So we had to read the letter twice, thrice to understand what were they trying to say. We are pleased to inform that disability is not going to be. And from then on, of course, the disability sector at that time said that we are too late. Not a comma will be changed. Things are already, because 2001 January it is supposed to start. So it will not happen and all that. Still, a letter went, and the importance of, census, because what was the biggest issue at that time was that disability almost was non-existent when it came to policies. The budget was very low for disability. So therefore, Mr. Abidi was very clear, because that without census, we will never get counted. Policies will never happen. The budget will not going to increase. And it's important to get the data of people with disabilities, and we will have to fight for it. So initially, of course, it is never a fight to begin with. So therefore, letter went to the registrar, who was Mr. Bantia, saying that, look, it's important to, we have now the 1995 Act. It says a lot of things to happen. So we need the data to kind of uh, plan, allocate policies. We need this data, importance of data. But Mr. Bhantia was very clear that no, you cannot count people with disabilities. You cannot count apples and oranges, all kinds of things. He said it is not possible to count. And he was very adamant about not counting disability. And he also said that, look, there is an NSSO. Why don't you go to the NSSO? NSSO will collect disability data. Census will not collect disability data. So then, of course, we had to do a lot of research at that time. Some people thought it was a very valid thing. NSSO is collecting data, then why do we need a census to collect data? So there was a lot of research that went into saying why both NSSO is very important, which can go deep dive into disability. At the same time, census is going to be important. And what we also realized, census was taking all kinds of data. It has some 26, 28 questions, including, all aspects, from even counting vegetarian, non-vegetarian, all kinds of data they're asking. Why not people with disabilities? And that is when, the entire sector, maybe that is the time when the entire sector came together, because today you have social media, etc., to get people together. But at that time, we had to write letters to all the people and ask them that why don't you fax letters asking for inclusion of data? And overnight, I think the Census Commission received a lot of faxes from all over the country. And 1999 is the time when National Disability Network was set up by NCPDP. So we had a huge database of the disability sector. And even then, things didn't happen, and there was a huge rally, protests that happened. Thousands of people came onto the roads demanding inclusion of disability in the census. And finally, of course, the intervention of the Home Minister. The census falls under the Home Ministry. Mr. L.K. Advani at that time kind of said that he understood that when these people met and explained to him, he understood, yes, it is important. And that's how, of course, the commission didn't have overnight. This question was prepared and the disability got included in census at the last minute. And of course, at that time, some amount of awareness happened. Again, the entire sector came together and everybody did their bit on creating awareness on inclusion of disability in the census. But then, yes, um, it was a good experience, and of course, the result wasn't that great. There were a lot of issues when enumerators were not asking question on disability. They were of course there is a hesitance in answering, but the bigger problem is that enumerators were not even asking that question on disability. They will ask the first 5-6 questions and then they will kind of fill up their own. That's the kind of experience that people shared. So interestingly, 2011, when it happened, one of the census commissioner at that time in Tamil Nadu was Mr. Chandramouli, who was very positive because when the disability was included in the census, the Tamil Nadu census commissioner took a lot of action in terms of creating awareness, etc., etc., and he became the census commission for 2011. So interestingly, we had one experience with Banthia, which was very confrontationalist kind of a approach in advocacy. And 2011, because it was Chandramouli, it was more collaborative approach that happened. He was willing to listen. That time, a more focused effort happened where the disability sector came together to decide what kind of question do we want in the there was a huge gathering of 100 odd people in the leaders of the disability sector came together. And there was this question whether we go with the Washington group question of functional questions, or do we go with, disability based question. And a lot of interesting debates happened in that. And actually, the sector rejected the Washington group question for many reasons. People wanted to know, we want to know which disabilities, we want to know the number of people with disabilities and specific disabilities. At the time, people said intellectual disability group was very strong, we want people to know, or even mental illness, people said
Sound not coming.
Hello?
Yeah, we were able to hear you, Rama.
Huh?
Please मुझे
Should I come closer? Is it better?
Sound, please.
Okay, Jawad.
Can you hear me or not?
We
Pratik?
can.
We can. Okay. So there was a lot of debate on whether we want the functional question or the disability-based question that happened. And there was very clear, and also people felt that since at that the questions are being answered by the heads of the families, the question related to can a person wash themselves, etc. People felt, the question needs to be, it may not be easily possible. And Census Commission also said that such a structure will not fit into, the Census Commission's question. So that functional question got rejected. But what interestingly got added was that there was a question on any other, which was again something that one pushed for any other, because a lot of people still said, look, I don't want to be considered as a person with intellectual disability. This is, I'm
Sound,
autism.
please.
Um, is that Srinivasulu?
Yeah.
Can you check at your end, because everybody else can hear?
Okay. My sound suddenly is slowed down.
Oh,
Okay.
you have to increase volume at your end. Others can hear.
Okay.
Okay.
I will check. Please continue.
All right. Okay. So that any other category got included, and we said that those who do not fit into any of these categories, please, here we are looking at the numbers. So go and, if you have, say, stroke, for instance, or you have epilepsy, for instance, if you think you have a disability, if you think that you have, you don't fit into these categories, like autism is not there, go ahead and identify yourself as under any other category. And that was a good addition, I thought, because large number of people actually could have an option to get themselves identified in any other category. And of course, at that time, because Chandramouli was very positive, what again, the resources was not available in that sense. However, NCPEDP, with its resources and some amount of funding, we had put together, I worked as a consultant. I was working with NCPEDP in 2001, 2011. We were consultant. I was working as a consultant with NCPEDP. So I would only know part of what we did. A lot of work happened from NCPEDP. But yeah, we prepared a training module. We prepared a training module because we said the enumerators have to be trained. And we also put together a manual for the disability question so that the understanding of these categories are clear. And how do you go and ask this question? Because what we realize is that people are very hesitant. You have, again, still a question like, do you have a disability? Again, the term disability, people will say, oh, no, I don't have a disability. So how do you ask this question? So we went and did some amount of training for them. I think, again, training happens in cascade. We were able to train the national trainers and the state partners. And with this module was given to all the state partners. There was also train the trainers so that they can go and train the second level trainer. I think there was
You're not audible, Rama.
29 lakhs enumerator. This is a huge number. And of course, it did not go through. Similar issues happened, that question. Another important thing happened in 2011 was that in 2001, it was in the number 16th. So we said that because, it is in the 16th number, it is not getting answered. So we want it to be much before. So they got it in the 9th, which is after the question on mother tongue. So hopefully we thought then this kind of possibility that the question would be asked. But of course, the awareness was also created. A lot of other organizations put together some TV spots. There were seminars and there were campaigns. A lot of organizations came together and did a lot of work on creating awareness among people. NGOs, I mean, unfortunately, Shruti Mohapatra could not come. They had a very systematic approach at the district level, at the village level, creating that awareness among, people, the stakeholders. So that is what happened. It is a lot of hard work. Let me tell you that it was NCPDP. It was like a full-time work during that period of 6 months or something, where it was a full-time work of people engaged. Every day, letters would even go to spiritual leaders to talk about, the inclusion of census. It went to all the political parties. Media was mobilized. In the 2001, there was a TV spot. That was a time when KBC was had started. So KBC had put that small TV spot because it was really viewed. So some of these were initiatives that was done with a lot of times. It's not easy to get a TV spot aired. So a lot of phone calls and follow-ups. It's a lot of hard work that went into even getting small things done. So I would say for this thing, we need to really put together time, effort, resources, and that is how it will be done. And every aspect. Today, you're going to have self-enumeration, which is really great. We'll have to really work on that. Yeah.
Thanks, Emma. I have a lot of questions personally, but I'll stop myself. No, I
Feel
mean, thank
free
you.
to ask. It's a good
We
thing
will.
to make it interactive as well. Yeah.
I think in the open, once we listen from Smita and Nikita, to be then. So, but thank you so much. I mean, I think we've got a sense of how holistic it was, and of course, I mean, listening to you seems like I mean, lot of hard work has gone into it. So I mean, I think we're also trying to understand what actually was also happening at the community level, and what we could also do. Smita is here with us. So, in terms of grassroots engagement, in terms of advocacy, in terms of involving disabled people and families of parents of children with disabilities, uh, how do we take it forward, Smita? In your experience, what has worked? Are there certain strategies which should work now? I mean, and how do you see next few months in relation to census and community engagement? Uh, working productively together. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Pratik. And as Rama said, it was a real full-time work for us, and different NGOs and DPOs worked together along with NCPDP for 2011 census, and we all remember multiple number of rallies we had to do, and with our state census department, the state census commissioners, we all worked closely. We went to their office, we invited them to our organizations, we had multiple discussions, and as part of these training programs also we worked a lot. And despite doing so much of work, what we could achieve was only 2.21% of the population, the numbers. Basically, that was a concern even for Mr. Javed Abidi and the entire disability sector, because we have worked so much, we have worked a lot on training, and now looking back, the enumerators were trained to ask for disability questions. And as Rama said, the question came up and all that. But what has happened is, in my experience, with not only working with census, but also working with other surveys, like I had an experience working with the PHR, Population Health Registry in Tamil Nadu, where they went to different households. The workers, the health workers were sent to every household, and they were given a huge list of questions to ask, and they were also supposed to take the health information, their check their blood pressure and all that. So when we went along with these enumerators, what I saw is they were not actually asking all the questions, and they are already prepared. They got an app, and in that app they know the entire list of questions, and in their mind itself they are preparing themselves on what are the questions that they have to tick. They will just tick, and there are very specific questions which they think they should ask because they don't know the answer, and they get those answers from the people. So even with the disability survey in Tamil Nadu, right now the government of Tamil Nadu is taking up a disability survey, and they are sending surveys. They have trained the surveyors on all 21 disabilities. So a couple of months back, one person, an enumerator, came to my house, and it was kind of a pretest, and she was asking me the questions, and she was again not asking all the questions. This is specific to disability census. So I was trying to see what are the questions in her app, and I was relating, and I would just tell her that you should ask this, and I may have different answers. It is not like what you think. So so we have to understand the multiple players. One is of course the enumerators, the training, and also because they have a target. So they work on a targeted approach. In per day, they have to complete so many, people, and so many surveys has to be done, entered. So that way, they will want to rush up, and they want to go back home early, or at least in the, by the night. And so, how do we pitch in? Because they have a target, they are hard pressed. How do we ease them out? And so this was my concern when I have been working with the enumerators in different surveys. And the political will. Why I'm saying political will is because the National Family Health Survey, 6th round, refused to have the disability questions, despite the disability sector advocating for it. So there is a missing of a larger political will on having the disability data, appropriate disability data. Now the Census 2001 has added it, and 2011 have developed it a bit. So what we see is they have to have it in Census. They can't say no now. But, are they very serious about it? So how much serious are they? How much effective will this be? If they had been effective, we would have got better results in 2011 itself. And after post the 2011 census, actually NCPDP did a survey, kind of a survey, and in that survey they found 6 to 8% of the country should be persons with disabilities. So why not that result we are getting in the national survey? And this we all need to think. We have to actually, push for the political will. Why political will is not there? Because we are not seen as a vote bank by the politicians, which we need to break. And recently, NCPDP took up that campaign during the last, Lok Sabha elections. So that is a major thing which we need to work on. We need to advocate, and for this, we have to come together as a sector. And this has to be our priority in the coming months. And everybody's priority, not only just a couple of organizations' priority. Everybody should join hands, and we need to make a huge campaign, huge noise that we are heard, and this process is very, very effective. And the second thing is about the enumerators, which I said just now. And there was also an experience when we have been discussing with the enumerators in Tamil Nadu. A few enumerators were attacked in our local districts like Madurai. People have been attacking them because the moment they asked the disability question. And that was also an issue which came to us because the moment they go and ask whether any person, any member of your family is a person with disability, then the people are coming out very furiously asking, how dare you come and ask me whether there is a person with disability in my family? So this is a stigma. This is a attitudinal barrier which need to be removed in the society. And because of that attitudinal barrier only, our enumerators had to face a huge issue. So that we need to break, and for that we need to tap the section 39 of RPDA, which talks about raising awareness. But the government or even the sector is not really focusing on section 39, which we have to focus very much as part of the census. And so two things. One is three things. One is with regard to the general public, larger public. They need to know that disability is part of human diversity, and there are 21 disabilities, and we need to give the right numbers so that policies, programs can be framed for the holistic development of the nation. And the other thing is, enumerators should be given the confidence and should be given the information that all these data pertaining to population, different population groups are very, very crucial, and they have to ask it. They should not skip it. So there is some kind of a scrutiny which can be done, like even through the app, or it is a good thing that we can do self-registration. So all these need to checked into. And then the final and major thing is the political will. So how much a political leader can talk about the importance of census for people with disabilities. If we can get some 2-3 leaders talk about it, and if leaders talk about it, then the news will be everywhere and everyone will give importance. And so these are a few strategies, very important things which we need to do. And as strategies, we have to build up campaigns, and we have to keep pushing the media and other things at the local level. Like we can even take the accessible elections campaigns as examples. We have to make it into a movement. At the district level, our persons with disabilities should be the nodal persons working with the census officials, and the district differently abled officers should be working as a team where persons with disabilities should definitely be a part. So in every step, we should be involved at the national level, at the decision making level, at the training manual or the training TOTs, and at the in creating awareness. And so in all the steps, we need to be involved, and that is how we can make a success. And please remember, we have to make it as a movement, and the entire disability sector should come together and take it as the utmost priority. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you, Smita. Um, I think and one of the crucial points which Smita was sharing was about stigma and representation. And Nikita, I mean, drawing from your vast experience of working with the Leprosy Mission Trust, how do you think the Census 2027 process can, really capture what Smita is actually talking about, to capture stigma and discrimination of probably disabilities which are sometimes less visible, a bit more stigmatized, and keeping that in mind, how does one really work throughout the process of representation, data and stigma, which Smita has also shared? So we would want to listen from you, and then we would keep the floor open. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you so much. So before I go on, I must tell you that there's a lot of excitement, and thanks to you and Shashank, Pratik, a lot of people in our communities, we've sent out the question to them to understand, and they never knew that something like this is coming up. We've never had this topic going on, or we've not really reached out to them. So how can we? So thank you so much, because this, while talking to them since yesterday and day before yesterday, a lot of ideas have been coming. And like Shashank mentioned, already a pretest and all has happened. So we may be a little late. And, for maybe perhaps for the training, but for enumerators and for the script and the questionnaire, for the standardized script, I'm not sure if we are there on time. But yes, in every census, it's happened that even though leprosy has been there, but a lot of people affected by leprosy have been completely left out, majorly because of stigma and discrimination that they face. So even for treatment, when there's a person diagnosed with leprosy, they'd rather go to Bihar from UP for a treatment and not be recognized in that area. And that happens with a lot of other people also with invisible form of disabilities. So the major challenges that I'm going to talk, and Rama and Smita have very, very beautifully captured some of the most important points that I was wanting to talk about, and perhaps we can capture that again. So we see the enumerators, one of the biggest challenges that the enumerators are given a standardized script, but they can't deal with, very sensitive topics. They have no empathy, and that coupled with the social stigma, it leads to either people refusing to answer or not coming forward. And the next is that people are not able to categorize their health conditions into disability and further into invisible disabilities. um, are the enumerators, trained enough to extract uh, the information on a wide spectrum of disability without making people feel stigmatized? And will the with the the questionnaire be designed to capture both the demographic, age, sex, and social economic status of people with disabilities? That would be important. Now, when I say that the enumerator should be trained enough, I myself have a son with autism. But last time in 2011 census, I remember a school teacher who was trained as an enumerator just came and said, she autism wasn't definitely included, but she just didn't want to, she was so in such a rush, and she didn't want to understand anything to put it as a mentally retarded category. So, having said that, I think Census 2027 is a great opportunity for government and for all of us at the NGOs to get disaggregated data on leprosy and other visible and invisible disabilities. Now, some of the recommendations that we have and that we've tried to put together, and we're still trying to put together, is why does the current data miss the mark? So while we talk about the census 2011, it was a significant step forward, but it did provide a very limited snapshot. It primarily focused on visible or physical impairments, and the broad categories were totally left out, like leprosy, which led to less visible impairments like nerve damage, loss of sensation, and functional limitations. There's a huge stigma barrier. So for people affected by leprosy, the challenge was about the myth checkbox. It's deeply leprosy like is deeply entrenched in social stigma, and people refuse to acknowledge that they have leprosy, or when somebody, they've anyways been hiding it. So when somebody comes in their community and asks them questions like these, they refuse to accept that they have leprosy, and which often leaves out a lot of individuals and family, and they tend to hide their condition, so meaning they never counted in the first place. Then there's a lot of proxy reporting. Data on disability is collected from a family member, who may be totally unaware of the full extent of disability of the person. So again, this leads to a lot of undercounting and underreporting. Uh, so when you spoke about the role of NGOs, I think they would be a great catalyst for change, because NGOs are not just service providers; they are also bridge to trust to some of the most marginalized community. And the decades of work that NGOs have, they have a good rapport with the government, enumerators, and no matter how well intentioned, the enumerators can't build that trust overnight. So this trust can be leveraged to encourage authentic self identification, training, and capacity building. So NGOs can also partner with Office of the Registrar General of India to train census enumerators. And this training should not be just about data collection, but also sensitizing them on how to interact with people with disabilities, particularly those with invisible disabilities. And they also need to understand the social context to be so that they are equipped to handle very sensitive information, empathy, and have confidentiality. That is the most important thing. And one of the things that everybody feels is could be very important, could be community led enumeration. So maybe NGOs could facilitate community led enumeration by engaging and training community leaders and people from the disability groups. There are lots of self-help groups, and these people can be empowered to be a part of the counting process, and their voices can be heard directly. So it's also very important, although it may be a little late now, to propose a list of guiding questions for the disability section, so that don't violate the confidentiality and the privacy of people with disabilities. For example, instead of asking, does anybody have leprosy, they can ask, has anybody in the family lost sensation in any part of the body? There is also a concern that the enumerators might ask for disability certificate, but not all people with disabilities, especially invisible disabilities, have such certificates. So it does not mean that they should not be counted, and the enumerators should have that awareness. And then the third approach is probably addressing stigma and awareness. So addressing stigma, how do we do it? The census form itself must be reframed, and the question should be absolutely non-judgmental and focused on functional limitations and daily challenges rather than on the medical diagnosis. For example, they can instead of asking a person, I mean, just a thought from somebody who's affected by leprosy. So instead of the person coming and saying, is this person affected by leprosy? They can ask questions like, does this person have a difficulty with sensation, movement, daily tasks? Because the functional approach is more inclusive and less stigmatizing. Raising awareness. Like Rama and Smita, everybody have been talking about that raising awareness is absolutely crucial. So they are campaigns that need to run parallel to the campus. Uh, they need to run parallel to the census, and they should not only inform people about the importance of being counted, but actively work on dismantling all the myths and misconceptions that surround various invisible disabilities. So perhaps a message like counting everybody is essential, not just for society, but for the country as well. And ensuring representation, the data gather must be just more than numbers and must be actionable. For this, we must ensure that committees and task forces responsible for shaping the census methodology and analyzing the data include representatives from marginalized disability groups. It's nothing about us without us. So that's it from me, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Nikita. Um, so, I mean, thanks, Smita, Nikita, and Rama, and thanks, Shashank. So, I mean, we're open for questions. If anyone has specific questions for any of these four people or any comment in general, would be happy to. Yeah. Yes, Ashutosh.
Do they count homeless and documentless persons with disabilities in census?
Shashank?
Yeah, sorry. Okay. As I understand, the question is, do they
What?
count homeless? Is that the question?
Yeah, homeless and documentless persons with disabilities.
Sorry, I didn't get the second part. Homeless and
Documentless, I think it's saying.
documentless.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So just one clarity for everyone who's there, that the census exercise by nature is declaratory exercise. It's not a validation exercise. Validation is something which is what we call National Register of Citizenship or NPR. Those are validatory exercise. Census is something wherein you just have to mention, and the numerators is by law has to incorporate whatever you tell them. They can't ask for proof. Theoretically, that's what's there, but I mean, in practical sense, we know how it operates. So you ask documentless, yes, they are counted. Homeless, yes, they are counted. So there is a category within the household survey itself, which has something called, the homeless people who might be staying at some institutions or any other facility. So they do are counted.
Thank you.
If anyone else has any questions, I mean, I saw Poonam and as well.
Hello, this is Javed here.
Yeah. Hi, Javed.
Hi. Actually, my uh, statement is not a question. It is just a request to all of the leaders of disability sector that inclusion will happen by our own effort. And if we have to make the census a, a productive one to get the real numbers, every organization have to put effort from the state, UT level to um, be the part of this process so that a kind of uh, sensitization awareness among the training of trainers, as Samita was saying that we have already a huge experience that we put a lot of effort, still we couldn't get the real numbers what we were expecting from the census 2011. Now that huge period has already over, and after around 15, 16 years census is going to happen, we should not miss the opportunity. We should first mobilize our own sector, cross disability areas. We should have a unity within the disability sector, and thereafter we should create a greater awareness among the masses, among our own sector. We should formulate some social media campaigns. We should have a kind of mobilizing person with disabilities through various channels so that uh, everyone is the part and parcel of this process. And if the numbers will come, if numbers we are successful in generating the real numbers, then only our mission will be successful. If we still lag behind and we couldn't make it, then the policies will never happen again and they will never help us to develop our own sector. So let us, it is the real time that we have a good time at this time. We have enough time to have more brainstorming sessions. We should have more uh, such kind of webinars and in-person meetings so that we can make it a good process and get the real numbers of the disability sector.
Thanks, Javed bhai. Akhil, I was anyways about to come to you. I mean, of course, Sense has a huge network. You've been there So please, guide and comment that how can people working on ground, organizations, networks could play a part. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Pratik, and I congratulate all of you on this initiative and calling everybody together. I think our success actually hinges on a very good training of enumerators and the implementation of questions. That's something which we need to rely upon. And for that, as Javed Bhai was saying, that we need to mobilize our communities wherever we are. So we need to identify all those OPDs, organizations for persons with disabilities, who are there in the smallest of the communities or the remotest areas. I think all our networks need to work on that. Start working now. I think we are already late, but we should start working now and use them to create awareness so that whenever enumerators come, if the family of the person with disability is not around, the neighbors and the community members can go and tell them that, look, here there is a person with disability in this family. I think that we need to create. um, as far as our network is concerned, we will definitely do it. Probably we need to take the question which is there, if we can get the sample, and start our awareness with that particular question, that this question will be asked, and all other categories of disability, we should prepare our stakeholders to answer what they need to answer. Because if we are confused in responding, that much even more confusion will be there in enumerator's mind, and we will get data which will not be, I would say, correct. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and Rama and um, Shashank, you all have done a great job. I was listening from the beginning. Thank you very much, Pratik.
Thanks. Thank you, Akhil. I'll take a comment from Shashank on the questions, but we'll go to Amit first and then to Smita.
Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
Pratik. Hi, this is Amit here. So I just wanted to know, there is obviously going to be some data collection problems and underreporting of disabilities which will happen during the census. So is there any possibility that the NGOs or any disability organization can collaborate with government bodies to get the data correct?
Okay. Shashank, would you want to comment on both the things, and then we can go back. Then we can go to Smita.
Sorry, I lost you, Pratik. What you're saying?
Akhil was saying, asking about the questions that
I think
involving.
if yeah, I heard the question. If Rama ma'am is there, maybe she can also comment because she has been the part of two census. Whether there was any instance wherein such activity happened in previous census.
You're on mute, Rama.
2011 happened in collaboration with the government. So we had an inroad with, it was a very systematic approach that was being followed. At one level, the master trainers were being trained, and the state partners were trained to train the next level. So somewhere a strategy was applied, and I know organizations who are all here, took up that responsibility and said, we will do, if there are so many enumerators, we will take up this training, this training. It was divided in a very systematic manner to at least go to the second level of cascade. There are like 5, 6 levels of cascade. I think somewhere second level was achieved by training. It was done in collaboration with the state commissioners.
I think also asking once we go to the communities, it's better to know what set of questions are being asked. So,
Pratik,
Can't hear you.
voice is not very clear.
oh, sorry.
Not clear.
Smita, you want to go?
Shall I go ahead? Yeah. So I was just wanting to talk about the last question or the last option which Rama mentioned, the any other. We have to stress on any other option even this time, and I don't know if the pretest had any other option, because many people with invisible disabilities, many people with disabilities who are not included in the disability list, whether in the 1997 Act or in the 2016. Of course, after that we didn't have the census, but all of us. For example, I have multiple sclerosis, and I ticked any other. So with the disability current act also, there are so many conditions which are left out. Even for example, spinal cord injury is left out, and they don't agree that they come under the locomotor disability. They should be part of multiple disabilities or neurological conditions. So and of course many other health conditions are all left out, and we need to create wide awareness about this any other importance of this any other option. And that is where we will be able to get more numbers, because it is up to us. Like we know the restrictions that we face, and with the restrictions we know that we will definitely fall into the definition of disability as per the CRPD. And Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016 is also promoting the same definition of CRPD. So we have to push for this any other more widely. That is one thing. And second thing about the previous question also, we need to look into the UN inclusion strategy. And as per the UN inclusion strategy, people with disabilities should be included in every aspect of whether it is decision making or implementation or monitoring. And so with that strategy and with that approach, we have to advocate with the government and approach the government for collaboration in every step. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, this is Sharmishta. Adding on to the same anxiety which has been going on in past three questions, I have a very fundamental question. If, for example, if nobody comes to my place or the institution I belong to, so is there any possibility of enumeration? Then can I just, um, enroll, or I could hear a term called self enumeration. Can somebody shed some light there?
Yeah. So this time I will first thing that there is a very little chance that no one is going to come to your place, because the process is designed as such that so these are government school teachers who are locally belong to that area. So something like it's the same machinery that's sort of operationalized during election and also during census exercise, because uh, in census there are most government officials, because you have to count everyone and not just people above 18. So the chances are that someone is going to come to your house and the institute that you belong to. In case there is no such person who has come to take the data, there's also a system of feedback. I mean, submitting a complaint to the system of Office of Registrar that no, you have not been enumerated. Then that two process done. Now the third thing which has come this year is a self-enumeration. So the specifics of self-enumeration is something which we are not very clear about. For instance, self-enumeration can also happen in the presence of a government official, or whether self-enumeration will be permitted to happen without a government official. That's also not very clear, because, for instance, if self-enumeration, blanket self-enumeration is allowed, then the government will come up with the presumption that whatever the data is coming, maybe data is being forged by some organization or some lobbying is happening. So that's also a threat of self-enumeration that's there. So how do they plan to balance that aspect? But self-enumeration is in whatever form is going to be there. And it's going to be there in the form of an application. Maybe they will build a one application which you can download on your phone on a digital device, and then it will take you to the form that you have to fill your entries, and then you can submit it. But on the third part, we are not very clear how it's going to happen.
Okay. And now where to retrieve this form, and how are they going to circulate this? And this also makes me ask another question to the team. When we say we need to advocate, we need to come out, and of course it's organizations working for and with persons with disabilities. But is there any plan, because I don't belong to the same sector, But of course, we see a lot of divides these days. Earlier, that divide wasn't that great, wasn't that deep, because it was a new movement. So that the movement doesn't fall apart. So my question might sound very negative, but very pessimistic. But it's a very realistic one, so that the the whole exercise doesn't fall apart. So yeah, could you?
Pratik, I'll just address
Yeah.
the first part, and maybe you can take whoever anyone can take the latter part. The first part is when it's going to be done. It's going to be done. The individual centric population questionnaire is going to be released after 15th of Feb 2027, and you will have a 2 week timeline to do that. And the household thing is going to happen starting from 1st April. There is no dedicated deadline to it, but it's going to start from 1st April. So your respective state disability offices will determine when that happens in our area. So that's the first part.
I'm audible?
Yes.
Okay. So, Shamishta, I mean, there are multiple things happening. I mean, regarding the start, that if we are late or if you're on time, I think I mean, that's there now. So, today is the best start. So, I
Yeah,
think it's a start.
absolutely.
A lot of organizations are doing anything. I mean, regardless of what happens, I think eventually it will benefit everyone. Even if there are four efforts from multiple sides, it will benefit everyone. I mean, as for what Shashank and I were thinking to do is to actually come out with a FAQ or some uh, self-explainer videos, resources which give out more information. So I mean, of course, when we say we, it's very subjective, but then at least someone could play the role of facilitator, and secondly, additionally, have resources which could be used, because as of now we are doing this webinar, and a lot of it is not tangible. So when you have an FAQ, when you have a small video, when you have resources on how to take it forward, we could, I think, things will move forward.
No, this for a start also was a very
Yeah,
good
yeah,
effort. I think
yeah,
they should continue. And just a suggestion, because NGOs or all the organizations are, or let's say most of the organizations think that persons with disabilities are beneficiaries,
yeah.
and not let's say stakeholders. So this activity, for example, the first premise is that persons with disabilities are stakeholders. So I think such activities should continue, and I must congratulate the team. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yes, Subhajit.
Shahan, oh, sorry.
We just go to Subhajit and then.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you, Pratik. Since Sharmishta raised the issue of self-enumeration, I think whatever little I have read, we need to be cautiously optimistic about that self-enumeration process. Firstly, uh, uh, it requires a person to have an email ID to register himself or herself on the web portal, which will exclude hundreds and thousands of people in rural areas, I'm assuming. And secondly, there are two layers of captcha verification, OTP verification in the process of um, putting in your data. So I have my doubts about the inclusivity of the process itself. And there is a need for advocating about making the process of self enumeration much more accessible and inclusive. And how the validation happens is whenever somebody manages to navigate through that complicated process and fills in the data and submits the data, an ID is generated. So whenever the enumerators would come knocking on your doors, and you can share that ID with them and tell them that I have done it online, just to avoid duplication. But the major, the moot point is how accessible or inclusive that entire process is. Thank you.
Makes sense. Yeah. Thanks. So, yeah, please.
So I'm Shahana Chakravarti from Adi. Now, of course, this is going to be a process of also self-enumeration, and which is going to be quite technical. So, how are we then supporting people with disabilities who may not be tech savvy? People from rural areas or even in urban areas who are not tech savvy. I think that is something that we may need to look into because even in the general population, there are people even the older population for that matter, they aren't tech savvy. So how will that be taken care of? Otherwise, it's been a wonderful session, listening to all of you and getting your inputs. Yeah, so if you would like to answer that.
Yeah. Thanks, Anna. Thank you for joining. We were wanting to get comments from Shamladi as well. Have been instrumental in doing. Even the last time census advocacy. In terms of digital literacy, Shan, I think there are two things. So the supply side, probably Shashank will comment. We were just thinking that because we're also talking about collaboration, um, and probably I think a part of it could be taken up by organizations or networks working on ground. So someone like us, let's say, have networks in some slum clusters of Delhi's urban slums and resettlement colonies, and how do we for next few months or for that stipulated time work it out really and get to know more about the process, develop resources, which we will, and spread as much information and do handholding as possible. I think apart from the disability organizations, networks of non-disability organizations, alliances on education, health, the helplines which are being running. So I think all those stakeholders have a role to play, at least on the NGOs and civil society part of it. But I agree. That might not fully suffice, and we need to have I think mechanisms from the design process of it itself. So, Shashank, is there anything in terms of digital literacy where when the government also considers in the entire process?
Right. So self-enumeration, I think Shubhajit explained, the draft that they have put out, the registrar, actually what the process will look like. So I was happy to hear that now the audience knows what the tentative process is going to look like. Now, see, self-enumeration was not there, and this is something which is new. The government also doesn't know how it's going to get operationalized. So there are 3-4 considerations that we have to take, and then I will mention how that OPD and NGOs can work. The first consideration for them to have a self-enumeration is to distribution of resources, because then they can the burden on their resources, which is what that every enumerator has to follow a particular deadline or a particular percentage of people, is something that they want to lessen. The burden on the government resources, something that they want to lessen. The second consideration for the government is that they want to speed up the process of data integration that assist them in the self-enumeration. The third consideration, which I don't think they did, but is very important from a disability sector, is actually ensuring the privacy and the stigma associated with declaring a disability. Because the chances a person will declare disability in a four corners of their room is higher than what they will reveal with the enumerators. Now, that's last consideration is a very important one for the disability count, because historically that is something that we have struggled with, not just 2001 2011 census, but even the reports that I have read previous to the partition, that was also something that every administration has struggled with, of this stigma associated with the disabilities. So how do we counter? First barrier to it is the digital accessibility. That's where, so the government is going to release the assistance module, a training module for every level of enumerators. There are 7 enumerators level that they have revealed, not just enumerators at the national level, but there are sub levels to enumerators. So there are 7 to 8 levels, and there's going to be a training module for every level of enumerators. So digital literacy is going to be a very important facet of it. I am hoping that self-enumeration is going to form a part of it. Now, from a disability perspective, we have to sort of advocate that self-enumeration has a consideration of accessibility and disability cognizance. Because if that part is not there in the module on a self-enumeration, then the entire dialogue will miss, the objective of self-enumeration the disability won't fall into that. So the government, when puts out later on that this was the success of self-enumeration, if you don't do a lobby or don't do advocacy, disability won't feature in it. So that's first thing. That training module, incorporation of disability within the self-enumeration chapter. The second part is actually the tapping in the network of OPDs who are actually working on the ground. because this time you have an additional resource that you can actually go and sensitize people, and you don't have to reveal your disability to anyone else. You can do that when the self-enumeration process starts. Now, the point that Shubhajit mentioned is the accessibility issue. The technical aspect of it is something that we can challenge the registrar on the face of it, because if their platform is not accessible, that's challengeable. The second part is, which is accessibility in terms of resources, is something which again is down to the network and the OPTs that are operating at their level, because this is something that can't be done from a top-down approach, but has to follow a bottom-up approach. So that's my point. The last thing is that I'll just say that the self-enumeration is an additional tool to have more disability representative data. It cannot backfire. I'm being very optimistic. It cannot backfire because the process is not being substituted. It's being added to an existing process.
Thanks, Shashank. Yes, Javed bhai.
Pratik bhai, I was just telling ki, has someone prepared any training module or something, a document which can be used for the awareness of the enumerators, and if we are allowed to work with the government at the state or UT level, what document? It should be a standard, universally accepted document so that we all have one say and it is
Yeah.
very effective.
Yeah. So, I mean, from our side, we will share, Javed, whatever the documents what we are developing. And I mean, of course, Shashank and us will also share if there are any initiatives or open calls from the government, but at least from us, the documents to simplify the entire process, to figure out how to do it, the role of organizations, the entire self-enumeration process. So whenever when we've started the process, just to make those documents, and we will share with you before finalizing. I mean, everyone for that matter.
Pratik, can I make
Thank you.
a few points if no one is speaking?
Please.
Yeah. Just one thing, that why we are doing what we are doing, which is census. Now, a lot of people said that, are we too late? In one sense, yes. In another sense, not, because the final question has not been decided yet. Officially, there is nothing that's out of what will be the questions on disability. So even writing just to the department to push them to have this all 21 categories specifically mentioned within the census form, and also the other category that Smita ma'am mentioned, is something that can be done easily by the sector. Just sending the mail will at least show them. And why I say so, because there in the RTI that I mentioned in my presentation that the Social Justice Ministry had responded to, we got to know that when they sent their suggestions of disability questions to the Office of Registrar, there was a third question that they sent, which was, "Do you have a disability certificate?" Now, my perception was that this was a very important question, because if you are asking for this, then you are getting a data on how many people do have a disability certificate. But for all practical purpose, we don't think that this will ultimately be final question, because the census, the population enumeration form in itself very long, so they won't preferring to have three questions on disability. So that's one thing. The second thing, why census data is important and why NSSO. So there has been argument that NSSO can give you better data as a technical maybe assessment tool, which is true. This argument is true that NSSO can give you better data. Now, but unfortunately, when policies are formulated, by policy I especially mean the budgetary allocation. The budgetary allocation is decided by the Finance Commission, which 16th Finance Commission is constituted, which is constituted for 5 years. This body decides how much money is to be distributed to each state, how much money is to be distributed to each ministry, and how much money is to go to each scheme. And one of the fundamental parameter that they use is the census data. That's why people every year argue why Department of Empowerment is getting budget of almost 1,200 crore and they're not increasing it. This is the reason, because in 2020, the 15th Finance Commission has suggested that the bracket of money that should be allocated to the Department of Empowerment should be between 1,000 to 1,500 crore, because they are just they have calculated that these are the number of people with disability in India, 2.67 crore, 2.6 crore. And hence the department doesn't need that much of money. This finance commission is constituted this year. It's going to submit its report in October end. That's what the deadline has been given to them. But the recommendation that this body is going to give is going to be revised when census data comes out. Now, if census data again is underrepresentative of persons with disabilities, this body's recommendation is again going to say that the Department of Empowerment doesn't need a lot of money. And hence the entire cycle of lack of budget to implement measures on the ground is going to falter again. Now, there is a third reason why census is again important. After the census data is released, there is going to be a body constituted called Delimitation Commission. Delimitation Commission is going to decide the number of seats in each state for the Lok Sabha, for the assemblies, because that is something that hasn't happened since 1976. So that body is going to determine how much seats are going to be increased, what's going to be the boundary. Now, if that body is responsible for redrawing the boundaries of the states, of the districts, of the constituencies. Now, if that body, for some reason, decides to bifurcate a region wherein there are majority of PWDs, then your political power automatically reduces. Because this body doesn't, for instance, the closest parallel that we have to this is for scheduled caste reservation for elections. Now, Delimitation Commission never divides a area which has majority SC population, because then it helps them to reserve that seat in future. So if we don't lobby, sort of advocate for this right now, then the regions which have the majority PWD population, for instance, tribal belts, etc., Delimitation Commission is going to subdivide those regions, resultantly reducing your political power in the mainstream politics. So that's how sort of what is happening right now is going to affect roughly the next 15 years of it, because the next census is again expected to happen after 15 years. So yeah, sort of my last concluding remark. Sorry.
Thanks, Shashank. If
Mr.
anyone,
Can I make one comment?
yeah, please, sure.
Actually, my name is Chongsin Koireng, and working as a general secretary of All Tribal Disabled Union Manipur, and we are mainly focused with the tribal persons with disability. And then here, when we talk about digital or something like that, I just want to raise one issue, that with the coming of UDID, Unique Disability ID, with the tribal persons with disability, this is not exactly, but likely 50% of the disability population are unable to avail even this UDID because of the this one online registration and these things and that things. So because when comes hill in the hill areas, we have an internet issue and smartphone issue. These things, many things are there, and even there is no specialist doctor who can verify the patients according to the disease, or according to the disease or according to our category properly. This is a big issue. That's why again, when we talk about digital, then we need to see more deeply regarding the people who are living in the hill areas, because and we need to create more awareness regarding this. So this and then so that most of the people may come out and should not be left out. Why I just mentioned UDID means that with the UDID, with the internet, with this many long process. So we are many people are not aware, even the parents, the stakeholders were not aware, on top of the person with disabilities ourselves. So many population and the number of population has been reduced, I should say reduced in the sense when we count with the UDID. So this is something I just want to highlight. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you, Koireng, for sharing. Rama, Smita, Nikita, any comments, closing comment suggestions you have, including Coring's comment, and then we'll close in some time.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you, and it's been a really interesting and a very, very good learning session. What I would suggest is that maybe if we could also have some of these sessions or more on the whole process with all the disability communities, where people could also participate, and they would have so many questions, so that we make the census more inclusive and ensure that we get the right numbers. So thank you so much for this initiative. It's brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, Pratik and Shashank. Yeah, I agree with Shashank actually. So we need to think about the big political will and act strategically towards tapping our numbers. And as Shashank rightly said, the budget, it is going to affect the budget, and so there would be an adverse or some kind of resistance or restriction. So it is up to us how we are going to come together and tap this whole thing and get our numbers right. Thanks, and thank you so much for organizing this. Appreciate both of you, Shashank and Pratik.
Yeah, again, from my side also, thank you, both of you. And of course, we need to have a strategy in place. You need to get in touch with the commissioner. That would be the best, connect with the top. And if the person turns out to be Chandramouli, that will be very good. How we are going to be training, what is going to be the training module, what is the strategy? Today, you have a huge social media, even going to the local. And I'm sure influencers, people would be also bothered about other questions. So how are we going to collaborate with those who are advocating for, like last time, transgender got included, but the data was zero. So somewhere I think we should also look at who are the other categories who are going to be, bothered and they're going to be demanding inclusion. So some of these strategy, I think the biggest thing I would say learning from Mr. Abidi, and the thing is that leadership, he actually demanded people that
Yeah.
send me a letter. Who are you? How many people are you training? What is your strategy? So every state partner had to report. So
Yeah.
that is a kind of, leadership and strategy is something that I would emphasize.
Yeah.
And resources.
Yeah.
We need to very quickly raise resources for doing seminars and events and campaigns. So
Yeah.
these are some of my closing thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, thank you. It has actually been a learning experience, and we've also been trying on, having meetings and sessions with organizations at least on ground, learning, seeing what happened last year. Last time, and what we could do together. And Rama, yeah, I think, of course, I think there are many organizations network outside the disability sector, and of course will be bothered by the process in itself, or other major stakeholders. So I think involving them as a collective also is a huge impact, because census has just census has an impact on every population, and all disability and civil society networks. So of course I think bringing them as well into the fold and having a collective network would be monumental. We are at 4:30. Shashank, probably final comments from you, and then we'll close.
Nothing. I think I gave a very long comment on it. I just want to thank Nikita ma'am, Rama ma'am, and Shilpa ma'am for sort of agreeing to it. We are trying to move beyond disability. Actually, that's an idea, because this time even caste is going to be calculated. So just one thing actually I omitted in my presentation was, in the pre-test exercise that's going to happen, population enumeration is not going to be done. It's just going to be household enumeration, which is happening because they haven't finalized questions on caste, which is why they are not doing the population enumeration. So we can also tap into that network of people who are working on caste enumeration or on gender enumeration, because the disaggregated data that we finally get is very important for mapping that trajectory of which disability is prominent in which area, among which caste, among which social group. So that's just one thing. I think we would be, I would actually ask assistance from people who are there here in this session and who couldn't join, that if you can sort of bring in more organizations, because we want to sort of build this collective where we can facilitate, and then people can take their respective initiative on the ground. So we would encourage people to get in touch with that and help us design the collective that we're trying to. Prateek, you're on mute if you're speaking.
Sorry, yeah, Shank. Thanks, Shashank. Thanks everyone for joining, and hopefully we'll continue have many more such sessions and something on ground as well. But thank you for joining on a weekend. Have a good weekend. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.